Hi guys and welcome back to English with Dry. Today we're going to take the first look into writing skills. This video is tailored specifically to AQA Language Paper 2, Section B. However, in general, it is a good introduction to persuasive writing for anyone. The first step that we're going to look at in a good piece of persuasive writing is actually answering the question. So I've given an example question that is in the style of GCSE AQA language. In fact, it is a past paper question. You'll be given a statement. Homework has no value. Some students get it done for them. Some don't do it at all. Students should be relaxing in their free time. And then you'll be given the actual specific question. Write an article for a broadsheet newspaper in which you explain your point of view on this statement. So step one of what to do in this process is to focus, or rather decide, what is the actual topic for your piece of writing. In this case, it is homework, and whether or not it is actually good or bad. And so then what you have to work out is what your actual opinion about this is, so that you can decide what you're going to write. Step two is, who are you being asked to write it for? Now, this is a very key part that is often done incorrectly, because if you were asked to write, as you are here, an article for a broadsheet newspaper, that means you have to adhere to a certain set of rules. It means that you cannot write using slang, you cannot write using informal speech, and specifically, you are writing it for an adult audience. So that means that you shouldn't be speaking as though you would be to a fellow student. You should be speaking as though you are talking to an adult. Step two is very much the most important one, because you have to decide how you feel about this topic, okay? Often, in a younger stages of school, you'll be instructed to write both sides of an argument. On the one hand, I think homework is great. On the other hand, I think it's really bad. That is not how you write persuasively, because the problem there is you are not giving a specific opinion. What you're doing is just outlining a bunch of facts, almost like it's an informative piece on the news. What you need to do is commit to a specific side. And that doesn't mean you can't acknowledge or write about the other side, but it means you need to decide straight away which side of the argument you're on. Essentially, you have to work out whether you agree with the statement or not. So for this example, we are going to imagine that we do agree with the statement that homework has no value, okay? Step three in our planning phase is actually the plan, okay? You're going to need to write a short plan before you begin writing. Now, this is a boring thing that your teachers will always tell you to do, but they tell you to do it for a reason. Because if you don't plan, the marker can tell. The marker can tell if halfway through you've lost your way and you just start making it up, okay? If you have a short plan based on the 5-paragraph ideas that I give you next, I guarantee your writing will be of a higher quality and it will be more accurate. Also, it will allow you more time to go back through and edit the work you've done. What you need to do, and what I'm going to help you with, is to create a step-by-step list of what you are going to say. All right, so once those 3 steps are out the way, you'll begin writing. Now, the first paragraph that I think is very important, I'm not going to call it introduction, I'm going to call it grab the reader's attention. And here I'm going to give you a 4-step guide on what to do to grab the reader's attention. Now, you don't always need to follow this order exactly. I'm just giving you a model of what to do. Firstly, ask a question. Really good writing to persuade begins with you engaging with the reader. And what better way to engage with somebody than to ask them a question? Step 2, within this first paragraph, would be write a surprising statement. Write something that possibly the reader doesn't already know, something that will make them more interested in your topic than perhaps they thought they were before. Step 3, tell the reader why the topic matters to them. If this doesn't matter to them, then they will not be interested. What you need to do is remind them that this is actually something that affects their life. And then finally, make your point of view clear. I cannot tell you the amount of times I've been marking a piece of persuasive writing where after half of it, I still don't know what the person thinks. This is a sure way to avoid getting one of the top marks, because if you are not making your point of view clear, you cannot achieve clear in the mark scheme. It's as simple as that. So next I'm going to show you 4 examples of what these things might look like. So firstly, ask a question. Have you ever wondered whether homework might cause children more harm than good? This is just a very simple way in. I'm not necessarily telling you what I think yet, but I'm kind of questioning a very basic assumption that most of us have, which is that homework is a good thing. By asking this question, I'll intrigue them straight away, because I'll be asking maybe something that people haven't considered before. A surprising statement. In Finland, no students have to complete homework, and they have one of the highest school success rates in the world. Now, this, of course, isn't exactly true, but it's something that I've put in to try and make the person reading it engaged in the topic, because they'll hear that and they'll think, oh, I didn't know that. Can that be the case? And if so, what does that mean? Then I make it seem like it matters to them. You could be spending more precious time with your son or daughter while also making them more focused at school. Now, what I've done here is I've very clearly done the thing we discussed in step 2, which is remind us of who we're speaking about or who the audience of our speech is. The audience of this article should be adults, and so therefore by implying that they might have a son or a daughter, that is exactly what we were doing. Fourthly, and finally for this first paragraph, I give my opinion. Clearly, homework is not the only way to ensure young people do well in their studies. I have not left any ambiguity there. I've made it really, really simple what I think, and therefore that sets the tone for the rest of my essay. So, paragraph number 2 is what I like to call personal anecdote. Now, an anecdote is a story that people would tell in order to outline what their point is on something. I might tell you a story to give you a better understanding of the argument I'm trying to make to help you remember it. The first thing you need to do in the personal anecdote paragraph is give an example of this topic in your own life. Therefore, thus, the personal anecdote. The second thing you have to do, use emotive language to make the reader connect with you. Making a physical human connection with the person reading it is the best way to make them respond well to your argument. The Greeks called this pathos, or rather, making the reader feel some sense of sympathy for what you're saying, and it works very well. Thirdly, you have to give a clear link to the impact that this has had on you, so you have to explain how this has affected you to prove that actually that's why this person should be listening. And then finally, suggest how this could affect the reader too. Remind them that it's not just happened to you, it could also be happening to them. So, the first way I would give an example for this is, I vividly remember being 14 and being set a science investigation, history project, and book report all at the same time. Now, whether or not this story is true is irrelevant. Your writing will always be better if you actually tell a true story, but you may not always have one to mind on the topic. But either way, you need to make up something that sounds believable about the issue you've been asked about. Now, homework is the kind of topic where everyone has had homework in their life, and so you should be able to bring up something that is related to this argument. Secondly, I use my emotive language. I did not sleep for a week, tearfully working myself to the point of a nervous breakdown. Now, here we have a few words that are designed to make a reader feel sympathy for me. Tearful, nervous breakdown. These are things that are designed to elicit sympathy from the person reading it, and that makes them more likely to like me as a person, as a writer, but also more likely to engage with my point of view. If they think it's having a real negative impact on someone's life, they're more likely to change their mind and agree with it. Thirdly, even to this day, my hands start to shake if I have too many tasks to complete at the same time. I'm showing that actually this isn't just homework. Having too much homework isn't actually something that just affects children, it affects adults too. And it can have a long-lasting impact. Now, the reason I'm doing that is kind of feeds into the last point that I made for this paragraph. You may not even notice the effects that stressful homework loads have had on you. What you always need to do is make the person feel like this actually affects them also. It's one thing talking about how badly this has impacted on you. It's another thing making the person reading it think it might impact on them also. Then our third paragraph. Now, the second, the personal anecdote paragraph, and this facts and figures paragraph are probably the two chunkiest ones in your persuasive essay. The first thing you need to do here is show that it isn't just you who feels this way. Now, you can have the best opinion in the world, but if nobody backs you up, then it's often hard to make other people agree with you because it seems like you are an anomaly. somebody who maybe shouldn't be trusted, or somebody who is a bit odd. If you show that other people agree with you, then that gives more strength and more weight to your argument. Secondly, refer to a source that gives statistical evidence in your favor. This is where you give numbers to try and make somebody agree with you. Nothing persuades people quite like cold, hard facts. Opinions are great, sob stories are great, but actually numbers are often the things that will get somebody through. Thirdly, quote the opinions of an expert. Now, as with facts and figures and this reference to an expert, they do not need to be real. In fact, the chances of you having memorized facts for every possible topic that could come up in persuasive writing are pretty much zero. So that means you can make these things up. Now, obviously, they have to sound believable. If you say 99% of children who get homework end up with stress-related illnesses, that's not going to be believed because it just doesn't sound right. 45% of students who have been given in excess of 3 hours of homework a week have ended up showcasing some kind of stress-related symptom at some point in their secondary schooling. That sounds more believable. And as with the opinions of an expert, you can have the same name every single time. And in fact, I find it quite enjoyable to come up with fake names. It doesn't matter, again, as long as it doesn't sound too stupid. And then the final one, suggest that no one can argue with your point of view. Suggest that because you have got these numbers and these percentages and these experts on your side, that makes your argument rock solid. So some examples. Academic research is increasingly proving that homework is not all it's cracked up to be. So this shows it's not just me who thinks it, that there is an increasing number of people who work in the study and in the field of academia and whose job it is to research what homework does are actually starting to agree with me. That suddenly makes it seem like it could be true. Secondly, Stanford University found that 80% of students experienced at least one stress-related symptom due to their workload. Now, that is a large number, but it's a large number of students who have experienced one stress-related symptom. And also, I've said that it was conducted by a major university, which adds more weight behind my argument. Thirdly, I say, our findings on the effect of homework challenge the traditional assumption that homework is inherently good, said Denise Pope, PhD, a senior lecturer at the Stanford University School. Now, I'm not going to tell you whether these two things are true or not, because it's irrelevant. They sound believable, and in GCSE or Key Stage 3 persuasive writing, that's all it needs to be. Because you're doing this on the spot, you're not preparing this, you're not researching this, therefore they can't expect you to have accurate numbers and figures. All it needs to sound is though it could be true. Finally, if experts at the highest level are starting to doubt how useful homework is, then we should too. You are reminding the person reading this that because this is starting to be looked into by people who know what they're talking about, then that should be good enough for us, and we should start to come around to their point of view. The fourth paragraph is a very important one. Reject the counter-argument. Now, this goes slightly into our kind of Key Stage 3, or rather our lower school. Oh, on the one hand, I think this, but on the other hand, I think that. Because this is the only time you acknowledge there is even another side to this argument. You show that you understand that some people disagree, because it's a really good debate skill and a really good life skill to actually listen to people who have different opinions to you. So you show that you understand there are some people, and you also summarize what it is they think. So you're being fair, you are giving the other side of the argument. But what you're not doing is agreeing with it yourself, because what you then do is you explore how and why they are wrong. It's not a very strong argument if all you do is mindlessly tell someone that you're right and they're wrong. What's much more effective is if you say, I'm right, this person is wrong, and this is why they're wrong. So then the final part of this paragraph should be explaining why they'd be better off if they listened to you. Okay, so examples. Firstly, undoubtedly there will be many who cannot imagine schools not giving students homework. I'm remembering, of course, that I'm actually giving quite an unusual opinion that homework's a bad thing. So I, of course, have to say, lots of people don't think that homework is bad. Secondly, I summarize what they think. They're sure to argue that homework provides young people with structure when not in school and teaches them necessary organizational skills. These are the kind of usual things that people might say about homework. But then this is where the most important bit. This is where I start to talk about how they're not right. Such people are clearly forgetting what it's like to be a young person. Remember, I'm not talking to kids, I'm talking to adults. Being pulled in 100 different directions at once and not being able to cope. I am asking adults to remember what it's like being a kid. And of course, every adult has had homework at some point in their life. And so, therefore, by reminding them of this, I'm making them more likely to sympathize with the young people of today. Finally, isn't it time that we started listening to the people who study? Now, this is the kind of the part that's most key. It's me reminding you, the reader, that actually they're experts. So I'm going back to the thing I've just convinced you of in my facts and figures section. I'm reminding you that there are people who are experts in this field and that they are the ones who we must listen to. And then the final section is just called conclusion, but it's not just a sort of simple old-fashioned conclusion. The first thing you need to do in your persuasive conclusion is ask the reader another question. Re-engage with them. Remind them that you are a person talking to them. Secondly, you need to remind them of the benefits of your point of view. It can never hurt to once more say why your persuasive point is a good one. And then finally, the last thing is call to action. Show them that this isn't just an article they should be reading on a bit of paper to be forgotten about as soon as they shut the newspaper or close the web page. This is a topic that can actually have a consequence, because that's much better for people. If people think that there's actually real meaningful change they can make, without doing too much work of their own, then that is something they'd be excited to do. So, our examples. What is the purpose of homework at all if not to help young people learn? Okay? I'm reminding us that homework is in theory essential, but actually in practice, it's old-fashioned. Secondly, in this day and age, it is all the more important that we reduce the stress young people have to cope with, not add to it. I'm kind of playing on the fact that there is so much in the news at the moment about stress-related problems with young people, and very rightly reminding everyone that there is too much stress on the youth of today. And actually, this is a way that we could solve that problem while not impacting their education. And then finally, the time is now to start demanding our schools and our government to reconsider this obscene burden before it's too late. Now, there's a bit of persuasive, emotive language there, obscene burden. Again, just trying to hammer home my point finally. Now, I'm not saying that if you follow all 5 of these paragraphs perfectly, that you will walk away with full marks in a persuasive piece of writing. And in fact, you can play with the orders and move things around. That's absolutely fine. This is not an absolutely essential way to do persuasive writing. It is, however, in my opinion, the best way, and the way that will guarantee that more times than not, you will end up writing something that is actually very meaningful and hits most of the assessment criteria. I hope this video has been helpful. Please stay tuned for more writing skills videos from English with Dry. Make sure to like and subscribe.